Hey everyone, Anthony here. Like always, I gotta start recording and then set up my camera later. Uh, Hope everyone's doing well. This video is gonna be more of like a long explanation video where we're gonna go more in depth about why I became a cryptocurrency millionaire, or why that happened in my life, why that didn't happen to someone else. I guess I wanted to, I don't know why, I wanted to just talk about my day a little bit. Uh, well, just real quick. I want to talk about my day a little bit, or what's going on in my life. And it's nothing even, it's just filler, jib jab stuff. Jib jab. Uh, well, I don't even want to talk about it now. All right, so we're having like a blizzard. I don't know how much snow but I think 4 to 8 inches. So that's going on. So I plan on just locking myself in my apartment and working on whatever. Like the last couple days, I've pretty much been doing the same thing, just staying in my apartment, not going out anywhere. Especially because restaurants are closed, and previously before, so they're closed because of coronavirus, but which doesn't particularly make too much sense, because at the restaurants we're completely like more than 6 feet, probably 12 to 20 feet away from each other in the place that I go to. And it's like completely dead during the day. Like it's usually me and the bartender, the only person there, the only people there. And sometimes there'll be like another one or two people sitting at a table like 12 to 20 feet away. Yeah, and I would go there just to get out of my house because like I said, my neighbors are crazy. Uh, so I'd go there to work on my laptop and everything. But yeah, I end up giving, I don't want to like toot my own horn or whatever, but the one bartender there, his name's Rich. I've known him for uh, 2013, maybe something like that. I met him at a bar that I frequented like a long time ago. Uh, but he works there as the bartender, and I felt bad that like just like the day. So the last time I was there, I was like, all right, I want to get out of the house before the restaurants close. I want to have at least a little bit of social interaction, because the last year I haven't. I've been staying home. I haven't went out or talked to anyone, and you guys know uh, how I wanted to practice talking to people and build relationships and connections in real life, and not talk to people on through text, through typing and social media and all that. I wanted to use my voice and learn how to speak better and all that stuff. Uh, where was I? So I wanted to get out because I haven't in such a long time. Uh, Even though like my main focus going to the that restaurant is to work on my laptop and whatever, I still at least have a little bit of human interaction then. But yeah, like I went there the day before restaurants closed, and I'm like, and I asked Rich, I'm like, so, and I didn't know that I thought they were going to close on the 14th. Ended up on Friday. They closed on the 11th, was their last day. Uh, Sorry, I was wearing a hat earlier. But yeah, I'm like, so what are you going to do for work? Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'll probably collect, I guess, unemployment or whatever. And also, he's like, yeah, we didn't have like any notice. I'm like, I told him, I'm like, yeah, there wasn't like any notice at all. Like, I just found out about this like the day prior, maybe 2 days prior to this. And he's like, yeah, I just found out yesterday. Like, yeah, so you don't really have time to prepare for this, like financially or anything. And I mean, realistically, like, if you keep up with the news and you know like how viruses work, like you knew there are ways to prepare for it. Like, you know that things are probably going to close in the future. Just by looking at the news and everything, you know that stuff like that's going to happen. But anyway, that whole story, just I ended up giving him $100 tip. I spent like $12 there on a couple cups of coffee and food. Uh, Initially, when I was going there, I didn't even want to eat. I just wanted to have coffee. But that's like the rule. You have to buy food when you go to restaurants. You can't just uh, drink coffee, uh, which is fine. I'm fine with spending money on food. But yeah, I told him like at the end, because I was there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. When I handed him the tip, I'm like, hey, hope this helps out. Hope this helps you out. And he's like, he looked at the thing. He's like, that's outrageous. But he was really like appreciative of it that someone thought of him. But yeah, like all that. The other thing I wanted to mention, after I film this video, I want to eat, and I have planned to make chicken cutlets, like chicken parmesan. So like the breaded chicken cutlet and sauce. I'm gonna use vodka sauce on it, but mix in some diced tomatoes into it, and then melt mozzarella cheese over that, and then also pasta, and then I have some Italian sausages too. I'm excited for that. I wanted to mention it. So I wanted to go into more detail about why I became a cryptocurrency millionaire. I'm not like that right now. I think I have like a little over $600,000 in cryptocurrency. I don't even, I have, between Uniswap and staking and everything, I don't have like an exact total of how much I have to keep track of, but probably like 650,000 or something like that right now. Yeah, and there was just like more attention. I've been getting more comments on my previous video from 2017 about like why did I become a cryptocurrency millionaire, because I didn't think it was that interesting to talk about how I became a cryptocurrency millionaire, because I was just like researching all the time and saving money and all that and being really efficient. But why was always like, why me? Why not someone else? And you hear these things sometimes, like you see a person with like a nice car and they're like, yeah, God was really good to me. And then you think like, well, why was God good to him? Why wasn't God good to me? Like maybe like, because if I use that reason for why I became a millionaire, that's not really helpful to you guys. Like just saying like, oh, it's just luck. Like God was really good to me, and it's not helpful to you guys. And I think there's like a lot of different factors in it. I feel like I'm probably rambling a bit here, but there's a lot of different factors in it. Like, so my grandfather I don't know if my grandfather came over home from Germany, or I need to turn off this computer. Well, now my face just gets a little weird. I don't know if my grandfather came over from Germany or if he, I know he's also Italian. He's German and Italian. I don't know like if he came from those countries over to America or if he was born here. I think he was born here. Both my grandparents act like they're, so my grandmother and my grandfather on my mom's side both act like they were born here. And I know my grandmother has told me stories when she was like real young, like 2 years old or whatever. And she's told me, I think my grandmother's parents, so I guess my great grandparents immigrated here to America. But anyway, like my grandfather always invested in stocks and invested in everything growing up. Every morning, or maybe every Sunday morning or something like that, I don't know if it was every morning or every Sunday morning, he would get the newspaper, and he would have like this little tiny notebook that he would write these numbers in, I guess like the prices of his stocks, and you have like this little tiny handwriting. I don't know like if that was like a function of him being like really frugal as well. So my grandfather was really frugal as well. So I think that's probably the investing and frugalness came from my grandfather. But I wonder if like that small notebook and the small handwriting was because he didn't want to waste paper and he didn't want to spend money on notebooks and paper or whatever. So maybe he wrote really small to save money on paper. I don't know. But that's always been like a thing in my mind because I never wanted to just buy stuff and lose value in it. Like back when I had a lot of guitars and everything, I'll post. I should have a picture or a couple pictures. I'll post them here. Or no, I'll take a short break and I'll put them up on the screen. But yeah, when I bought guitars and everything, there's this guy on YouTube, Trogly, Trogly, and he's kind of the same as I was with guitars. Like he looked for like really guitars that would go up in value and have like meaning behind them or significance or importance behind them. So that's what I was like. Like I love playing guitar and everything. Like I have SRV, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Jimmy tattooed on my arm. I love music, blues music and stuff like that. Which is like, there's like a whole whirlwind in my life. Like when people started telling me that white people stole blues music and I shouldn't listen to blues music because I'm white or whatever. Like that's a topic for another video. But yeah, so the guitars that I bought and everything, I always like I would buy one or two to modify them to be my own guitars, and then I would have the other ones where they're just like completely awesome guitars and they were like kind of a limited edition guitars. There's a 68 Stratocaster reissue, and then guitar pedals as well. The Fulltone the Fulltone 69 fuzz pedal. I had I think maybe the second revision of that. I had a couple of them. I bought them because I knew they were going up in value because the germanium transistors in them were like no longer made, and this company bought up a huge batch of them. So once they were gone, they were gone. So that's why I bought a couple of those pedals and made a couple $100 each off of them. In fact, I'll show you the guitars that I have now. I don't know if I ever talked about them before. The guitars that I still have left, I'm not really collecting guitars anymore. But so these are just ones that I bought that aren't worth anything really, and I just bought them to play. I should get like more light in here, but this is a Mexican Stratocaster. It's like $300 guitar that I modified completely to look like Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar. It's another Mexican Stratocaster, like $300. I modified kind of like the maroon red guitar that Stevie Ray Vaughan played in El Macambo when he played the song Lenny. But then I just put worn stuff on it. Like I sanded this stuff down and it has some different pickups. I think the tuners are different. These are never going to be worth anything because they're like modified guitars. This is a 1977, 1978 Takamine. So if we look at the headstock, way up there. And what the hell did I just do? All right. Man, that whole last thing wasn't even recorded. All right, well now everything's just all screwed up because I take out this memory card to look over the footage, which I didn't even look over. I'm just gonna be whatever about it. But I take out the memory card and notice there's only one memory card in this camera, that one. Usually there's two. So I'm like, where's my other memory card? And I lost it. And that kind of upsets me because not only there's probably footage on it, but I have like, where could it be? Like this camera hasn't even left the house. And it's usually only in two places. But yeah, that's another thing though, like with my money, I always like kept track of everything. Now I have so much stuff I can't keep track of can't keep track of everything anymore, and I have so much stuff that I'm trying to do as well that I can't do that. But yeah, losing stuff is another anyway, that guitar stuff, what I was saying, that acoustic guitar that I showed you has significance because it's a like a lawsuit guitar, because the guitar looks exactly like the Martin D28, down to the script on the headstock, and that has significance because there's like a story behind it. Yeah, but that's like another thing that I do. Like I try to show you guys all this stuff, like uh, my lists, and how I store and pack food. Like I don't want food to go to waste or anything. Like I think I threw out food. Like I think this is gonna be my first time throwing out food, because I'm kind of just sick of eating it. But like I just make one meal, put it in Tupperware, and eat that until it's gone, and then I'll make a new meal. And then like all my food, uh, I have, and I should turn on lights, but all my food I like store so that it'll keep in the freezer for a while. Just slam doors. But that's like another thing that I do. But the more complicated thing, I don't really want to talk about like what did I do? What do I do to be frugal? I want to talk about like it's hard to even think about. But there was also like my bad childhood where I didn't what I saw life as wasn't anything that I wanted to be a part of, I guess. So I didn't try, and I didn't try at school, because I'm like, oh, it's just gonna be the same boring life. Like, oh, go to school, get a job, and whatever. Uh, there was a lot of really screwed up thinking in my head, uh, that I didn't like or agree with, or whatever, back then. And also with like with relationships, I always felt like, oh, the woman only wants me for my money, so why am I even gonna try, if that's all that she wants me for? She doesn't like me for me. Like why should I even try to get a job and everything? And maybe it was like a way of like testing people to see if they wanted, me around, for me, or if they wanted me around for because I had a job and could give them stuff or whatever. So I'm like, all right, well, I won't get a job, and then if people stay around, then I know that they actually like me. And that was one of the things with my first girlfriend, which I talked about in the first video. But she always kept pressuring me to get a job and do all this stuff, and I'm like, why? Like, why does that matter? I didn't understand like why it mattered, because like if she didn't want to have kids, why would I work to do all this stuff? Like it didn't really make sense to me. Uh, and I saw like her wanting me to get a job as like, as her just wanting money from me, I guess. It's probably like a little bit more complicated than that. But also seeing like my my uncle, it has or had, I haven't talked to him in a long time, been around him or anything in a long time, but he had like a very successful plumbing business on Long Island. He had like sports cars and expensive houses on the beach and everything like that. Like uh, that was always like a big subject in my family. I don't know if it was necessarily like a subject to that was like always talked about or whatever, like how rich he was or anything, but it was just like it was always a thing that was just like there, like it was just like I don't really know how to put it. Like if you have like an aunt that's like a drug addict or something, it's not something that like it's just like an aura around. It's just a thing that everyone knows and whatever. But then him and his wife got divorced, and she took him for like a ton of money and just like went after him really hard for like all this stuff, that completely ridiculous stuff. Like she got millions of dollars from him. I think she gets like She got like millions of dollars lump sum, and then she also gets like $14,000 a month uh, in like alimony or whatever it is. So seeing that like growing up uh, was really, I shouldn't be rambling like this. I should actually be thinking when I speak. But yeah, I guess like I also saw like my uncle had a successful business and everything like that. So that probably had like some stuff to do with it too. Also, like I had, well, I probably still do too. Like I have like a really high IQ, like 143 or 148 in math. And then I think my verbal was like 130 or 132 because they test it like twice. They do math and verbal, uh, which weird. You wouldn't think like how I speak that my verbal is actually that good, but I think maybe I don't know. But there's things like that just like were a part of me. Like when you think of uh, like a basketball player, well, if you're like, or a sumo wrestler, basketball player, like a sumo wrestler, you're going to be a better sumo wrestler if you're a big, stout guy, because then you can't be pushed around when you're sumo wrestling. So there's like that hereditary thing as well. So I think there must be like some type of hereditary thing with me that makes me understand complex subjects, uh, which it's not just like understanding complex subjects come naturally to me because I take like a long time just sitting down trying to figure out things to get them to work and to understand them. Uh, when I need stuff like that, like with Uniswap, uh, it takes me like a really long time to understand the protocol fully. This way that I can work it to my advantage and not end up losing money on it. Which is another thing. Like I have to keep track of that, which I used to keep track of like my mining. I would keep track of my mining, constantly looking at the computers, making sure that everything was healthy on that side, and then making sure I was still profitable, and planning for the future uh, with that as well. So there is also like there's a hereditary aspect of like the sumo wrestler, but then the sumo wrestler also has to learn how to sumo wrestle. And the same with basketball player. If you're like 7 feet tall, you have to learn how to be a basketball player. You're not just going to be a good basketball player because you're 7 feet tall, and you're also going to have good coaches around and probably network a bit to get into the NBA. So like if you have like maybe a good high school coach that was maybe like some coaches, they failed at becoming successful NBA players. So then they went on to coach, and then they end up so they have these network connections back from when they used to try to get into the NFL or NBA. So they have these network connections, and then they know what it's like and they know what it takes to be there. So when you have a good coach like that, a good coach helps you and stuff too. My coach, I would always just Google everything, and it turns out Google was so wrong with relationship stuff. I would always Google relationship stuff because I wanted to have good relationships and everything. Uh, the stuff that when you look up like how to get your ex-girlfriend back, like why do you even want someone who doesn't want you and treated you that way in the past and left you and doesn't want you? Why do you even want that in the first place? Yeah, I was always going to make like videos debating or rebutting dating advice stuff, because that was like a crazy part of my life. But yeah, like the key to relationships is just be good and care for the other person, and look for their needs and everything like that. So yeah, there is that aspect. Like there's like a hereditary aspect, and then there's like a lot of hard work too. And then also what I was saying about me not graduating high school, and that had like a lot of things to do with my family. My family, oh yeah, that's kind of where I was getting at. My family didn't really care about me. Didn't see the emotional and mental abuse and stuff going on in my life that made me see the world as a terrible place, that I just wanted to die and didn't want to associate with everyone and just stayed in my room all the time. Uh, so no one helped me in school or tried to guide me into having a good life or anything. It's just like, here's our son, here's our nephew, here's our grandkid. He's just there. We're not like educating him and guiding him or helping him with anything. He's just there. Uh, so I think that's like a reason why I didn't graduate high school. And that also brings up like the point that some people make is like, oh well, you had a really bad life. You were treated really poorly as a kid. So why should we not treat kids poorly? Because they're just gonna overcome it like you did. And like, no, that's not like a reason. That's also a reason. Like, uh, someone was saying, because I was talking to someone a couple years ago about hitting their kids. Uh, they're like, oh, hitting my kids, like my father hit me and it just made me stronger because then I was able to fight back. I'm like, no, that's you don't abuse people and hit your children uh, to teach them how to fight back. Like teach them how to fight back. The kids that are picking on them in school, teach them how to fight back. The people that are actually bullying them, teach them how to fight back. Uh, Things that actually affect them. Don't artificially become the bully. They're just going to learn how to fight back against you. They're going to learn how to, like, your weaknesses and whatever. They're going to learn how to fight back against you. They're not going to learn how to fight back. uh, like they're not going to learn if someone's threatening their job. Uh, if someone's threatening their job by being better suited for their position or whatever, they're not going to learn how to fight back in that. Uh, Bullies picking on them or whatever, they're not going to learn how to deal with bullies. They're going to become a bully themselves. Uh, but yeah, that's like a thing though. Like, why? Just because I had a bad childhood and I came out of it and worked hard isn't a reason to give other kids bad childhoods. That's completely manipulative and abusive. Uh, but yeah, with not graduating high school, uh, and just wanting to die and everything like that, then I was put into like psych wards and everything, and went into that whole process with uh, counseling centers, like state-run counseling centers that are just like, they don't give a shit about you either, and they definitely don't help. Like, this is why I help, like, when when uh when that guy at the restaurant was out of job because they were closing because of COVID. Like, I actually know how to help people. I'm just not like I'll actually do stuff to help them. I'll just not like brush them off or whatever, or put them on a ton of medication and be like, oh, he has ADHD, we're gonna put him on a ton of Ritalin. Well, ADHD, like, it says it right in the name, attention deficit disorder. Like, it's like this person's not receiving enough attention, so then they're acting out to get attention because no one's giving them attention or care or anything like that. You can also think like people that wear like all flashy clothes and everything, and all bright colors, and or girls that have their boobs hang out. That's a form of attention deficit disorder too, because they want attention from guys, and that could be uh, there'd be like a ton of reasons behind that. But that's it. People act out because they're not receiving enough attention, and it messes with the mind. Uh, but I know like how to actually help people and stuff because of all the stuff that I went through, and because of Stefan Molyneux talking about everything too. Uh, and then which doesn't have anything thing to do. This video is going to be probably the worst video in the world, but yeah, I was also so out of high school. So I failed English the 12th in 12th grade, and that's why I didn't graduate high school. We also had like a senior project to do, which I built my 83 Ford Bronco. There's a video on this channel about that, but I built my Ford Bronco for my school project. I was like months late on it, and I was working at McDonald's 60 hours a week while going to school. So that's another reason that I failed high school too, is because I was working so much that it was just like school and work, and I didn't have the energy for both of them. Battery change. But yeah, I was falling asleep in English class because I was working until midnight, getting home at like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and waking up at like 6:30 to go to school. So I was getting like very little sleep. And part of that was because I needed money to finish my senior project. No one ever told me like, hey, maybe you shouldn't spend this much money on your senior project. Maybe you shouldn't spend thousands of dollars on your senior project. Like, you don't need to do that, and look what it's doing to you or whatever. But also like English class, I'm like, well, what do we need to read this book for? Like, well, I never read any of the books in class at all. I think just because like my mind was so focused on like all the bad stuff going on in my life that I was just like completely blank. And this battery isn't that good either. This one should have been charged though. But I couldn't focus because of all the trauma that was going on in my life and everything. Like, I couldn't sit there and focus on reading a book, especially when I didn't want to read the book and didn't see like a point in reading it. And I still get that way. Like, I still have to force myself to do stuff that I don't want to do. I'm sure everyone gets like that. Kind of forgot where I left off. So yeah, like out of high school, so yeah, I failed English senior year, and that's why I didn't graduate. Out of high school, I didn't know how to get a GED, and I don't think I even wanted one. I just wanted to like curl up in a ball and die. I don't think I even wanted, and I listened to Nirvana a lot back then too, and that kind of really propelled me, or kept me in like this deep dark space as well, mentally. But yeah, so I didn't graduate high school. I failed senior year, and then I didn't get my GED because I didn't want to, but also I didn't know how, and didn't have like anyone I could ask for help on how to get it. Like, I didn't know where to go or who to talk to. I didn't even know how to talk to people. I was afraid of talking to people, which is like when you're around abusive parents and manipulative parents, you kind of expect everyone to be like that. Also, that's kind of why I always feel like I'm an inconvenience, I think, is because I was always an inconvenience to my parents. So it's just like ingrained in me that I'm an inconvenience, and I have to like remind myself like, oh, I'm not an inconvenience. And also, when people act like that, act like I am a inconvenience, then if it's a relationship that I care about, then I bring it up to them. If it's a relationship that isn't really important to me, then I'll leave, because I don't need that in my mind. I don't need any relationships where I'm an inconvenience to them, because then that affects all my other relationships. So then I went to the temp agency with my mom, and ended up working my way up to the to the warehouse manager there, which is like a whole other story. Uh, but yeah, I just worked really hard, and I was like, just saying like, oh, I worked really hard isn't really helpful, I guess, either. But I would always do the best job that I could, and my bosses noticed that, and then they put me onto into the warehouse, and I learned how to keep inventory. And I think like my accounting and bookkeeping stuff from like investing and everything, and because I was always like big in balancing my checkbook when I was a kid too, and making sure that I always had enough money and everything was like squared away and everything with that. Uh, that helped with keeping inventory. So I was like, they were never able to have someone run the warehouse and do such a good job, such a great job that I did. It was like, from what they told me, it was like a decade or something since they had someone who was able to do it. Uh, I'm just trying to think like, how does this relate to the topic of this video? It's more just me like just rambling on about my past and my life and everything. But yeah, that's like another thing that helped me move forward and everything like that. Oh yeah, so out of high school, that working at the warehouse, I was making like $11 an hour, and again working like 70, 80, 90 hours a week, still doing all that stuff. At my peak, that was like the most I was working and everything, and I lasted for a year or something doing that. But because I was making so much money, I ended up taking out a loan. A friend that I had needed or wanted to switch from Penn State, Worthington, which is in our area, to Penn State, Maine, which is in wherever Penn State is, but the main campus. And in order to do that, he needed a loan, and I didn't know, like, I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought like I didn't understand anything. I think all I did was sign a paper. I didn't ask him any questions or anything like that. And I didn't have anyone to ask questions like, hey, should I be doing this or whatever. And then also with me making the amount of money that I was like, oh, well, if he doesn't pay this loan off, I'll just pay it off because like I'm okay financially or whatever. So I co-signed that loan, and that kind of he never paid a dime on it. And this is like this was in 2008 maybe, so like 12 years ago. He still never paid a dime on it. That also prevented me from getting a job because I was afraid of getting a job, because I was afraid my wages would be garnished because of that, because I co-signed that loan. So I didn't, cryptocurrency really was like the only way out for me that I saw. And also like I was studying computers. I think I talked about this before, but I was studying computers because I saw like all these people who went to college and got these like desk jobs working on computers and everything like that. I'm like, oh, they're like the high class people. I want to be like a higher class person. I want to be like I was comparing myself to them, which I think is fine. I think it's like good motivation thing to compare yourself to others, because you want like stuff to strive for, and you don't want to be just like a bump on a log or whatever. So I didn't want to be like the loser person or whatever. So that also helped me push me and drive me forward and everything. And I was studying all these computers and everything on my own, because I was competing with all these people, and I was definitely like always a free market capitalist guy. Like I always thought like like, oh, I'll get the job because I'll have more knowledge and I'll be the most capable person to get the job, which has helped me get some very good jobs in the past, with the sheer amount of knowledge that I had about computers and everything like that. It's definitely helped uh, get me some jobs. I would still get in at like the ground floor of these jobs or whatever. Uh, I would still get in at like the ground floor, and I would still feel like I should have higher up positions or whatever with the amount of knowledge that I had. Uh, but yeah, seeing all that stuff, seeing these people like uh, become like computer scientists, like people that I went to high school with, uh, going to college and getting these desk jobs and doing all this stuff up, that like drove me into learning about computers and everything. That drove me into studying so hard is that, and also like I said, with me uh, believing that the best person for the job gets the job. Now it's kind of different, because I see there's like quotas and diversity quotas and all this stuff that is just completely horrible for business, and it doesn't incentivize people to be good at their jobs. Like if you're just going to give this person a job because they're a woman or a minority, then why do they need to learn all this stuff? Like there's no competition for them. Like unless you just give someone a higher position because they're more black than the other person or they're more of a woman than the other person, well then you're just incentivizing people to be more black and more womanly. Uh, if that's what they want is these positions, you're not really incentivizing them to be better at their job in order to get promotions and higher positions. Uh, that's just how I always thought. So it's like those two factors that got me into studying computers and everything was, I mean, I'm repeating this like third time already, but those two factors, like me looking at people that I graduated high school with and wanting a computer desk job so that I wasn't like this laborer, like low class laborer person, which there's totally nothing wrong with that. I have mad respect for laborers. A lot of times I wish now these days, I wish that uh, I would have a job like that. Uh, and they're perfectly moral and upstanding and awesome people that have jobs. Like I have friends that cut down trees and friends that are garbage men and everything like that. Perfectly, like if not, they're more down to earth people than the people with higher class jobs. Uh, I get along with them a lot better. Um, yeah, so that happened in my life that turned me onto computers and made me study so hard, and I always felt like with technology and computers moving so fast, because I had to compete with people in the workforce. I always felt I had to learn uh, the fastest. I had to learn everything as soon as it came out. I had to learn all this software, all these new protocols, everything that came out, because I'm like, if I don't learn all this stuff, then someone's going to come in and take my job from me. Someone's going to outcompete me at work. So that's when I was like all into rooting Android phones and learning about torrents and how all this networking works and everything. And I would learn like every new piece of software. I would study and learn, and I just had to learn it because that to me was like job security, learning all of that stuff. Uh, and because of that way of thinking, is why I was able to get into cryptocurrency so early. And I had friends from working in the HTC Aria and Android phones, like rooting phones and all that. Uh, like I always had to be like a step up on everyone. So if someone got like a Android phone, well, I had to learn how to hack it. I had to be better than them. Uh, Now I just see everyone as the same as me, and I relate to people a lot more because we're all on the same level with the shit that we deal with in life. But with hacking the Android phones and everything, we had like a IRC channel support group for the kits that we put out, which I was more like a person who like proofread them and went and made sure there was no errors in the guides and everything like that. I wasn't really the person creating any of these rootkits and everything, but I would do that, and I would learn everything and give support to people in the IRC channels. So because of that, making friends in the IRC channels, there was a group of like, I don't know, 10 of us or something, and they were all always up to date on all the latest technology stuff and news too. So I always felt like, oh, I was competing against them as well. So whenever they brought up something, I had to learn about it. So there is that aspect too. I had people around me that I could look at to do. I have a new thought in my head. So then also, and it was actually one of my friends in the IRC channel brought up Bitcoin like a couple months, maybe like 6 months before I did. He brought up Bitcoin, that he had bought some. This back in like 2012, I believe. Yeah, because I was involved late 2012 is when I first started looking into it. So he bought Bitcoin in 2012, and he sold his Bitcoin to buy 2 GPUs so that he could run SLI and play games. But he was initially the person, Matt was his name. I'm not going to give out his last name, but he was the person that initially talked about Bitcoin in our IRC channel way back in middle of 2012. So then in 2013, I ended up getting a settlement for, I think, $30,000, somewhere a little bit less than that. I used that money to buy a car, my Saab, which was like I paid $8,200 for that. And then the other money, I'm like, well, I'm not like, these jobs that I'm getting in at the ground floor, and I'm like, they're not even giving me a chance to make higher paying, be in higher paying, more technical positions, which I didn't know that I could convince them and work that way. Because with my first job at the pizza factory where I was running the warehouse, it was just like me working hard and then them giving me promotions, like them just noticing me. I didn't think that there was stuff that I could do to show them and ask them for chances to prove myself for higher paying jobs and all that. And also, the people that have these positions, the people that have these higher paying positions, they don't want a new guy like me coming in, because that threatens their job security. Having me come in who's like knows way more than them and helps them out and everything like that. So I was always like pushed down because of that as well. So I wasn't having like a good experience with working. And making my way up to make the money that I needed to have, because I always wanted to have a family and kids, and I wanted to be able to provide for them, and I couldn't see how that was possible to pay for kids and pay for their health care and pay for a house and everything on $11 an hour. Now I think that it very much is possible to do that. Lost my train of thought again. Oh yeah, so I had some money, and I knew I had to invest it because I needed money for the future. I was also a poker player, a pretty successful poker player for a while, and made money doing that. But that's another story. I had my electricity turned off in my my first apartment for probably a year, maybe longer, and selling my guitars to play poker then winning money in poker was how I was able to turn my electricity back on. Also, my uncle who was the plumber, he gave me I think $200 to play poker with, uh, and I played poker with that and ended up like doubling or tripling the money, paid him back, and then used that money to turn on my electricity as well, because I was like behind by like thousands of dollars that they turned it off. There's actually one outlet, I think it was outlet in the kitchen, still worked because it was wired to the apartment downstairs. So I ran my refrigerator off of that, and then also a lamp that I would put on an extension cord and carry like into my bedroom uh, or into the bathroom when I needed light for the bathroom. That was really such a terrible time because I'm just there all alone by myself with no electricity for like a year, just like laying in bed, crawl like in a ball, hoping I would die. It's hard to even think about today because it's so long ago. Like I'm uh, so distant and removed from that these days. Uh, yeah, so that's when I heard about Bitcoin, and I was originally researching gold, and I didn't. For some reason, I'm like, oh, I don't want to invest in gold. I want to invest in silver, because for some reason, I thought silver would go up in value more or something. Uh, and I was always kind of like an esoteric investor, I guess, to where like, or like the scene kid investor, even though I wasn't a scene kid at all and or anything like that. I was always like, oh, everyone's investing in gold, well, I'm gonna invest in silver, or oh, everyone is doing this, well, I'm gonna do this instead. Uh, so so yeah, and then I was looking into gold, and I was looking into like bank interest rates and everything like that. I'm like, I'm not going to make the amount of money that I need to make investing this money into gold or investing it into a savings account. I need like more. So that's when I started researching Bitcoin a lot more. And then all that, Bitcoin was like free market programmed into computers. And that's always how I've been, like I said, with work, like wanting to be better at work and competing and everything like that. And that just like really turned me on in cryptocurrency and all that. Uh, so it was just like a huge combination of facts between like having a bad childhood, uh, not having anywhere to go, running into computers, having this or wanting to study computers, having this, having all that previous computer knowledge and everything like that, which helped me understand all the protocols and everything. Uh, and then like a hereditary aspect too, having my IQ so high. And this is also where like I really believed like I had Asperger's for the longest amount of time because like how I spoke and how I was, uh, and they would always say like, oh, you have a high IQ, uh, and you're like Rain Man or whatever. Like that's always what I thought about autism and having a high IQ, and then also me listening to music and the way that I would feel or interact with music, which I think everyone does. I think everyone does it. I don't think I'm any special. Uh, but then also my speaking. I never learned how to speak until 2017 or whenever I started this YouTube channel, and I'm still bad at speaking. Sorry, I'm watching my battery blink and about to die. Uh, I never learned how to speak. So I'm always like, oh, I fell into that like, oh, you have Asperger's, you're destined to never have a girlfriend, never have a relationship, or you have autism, this is just who you are. And I don't believe that at all these days. And there's so much stuff, so much knowledge I have today on the contrary to that. Uh, but all this stuff just like culminated into into how it happened and everything. It's 3 o'clock, 2:52. We're gonna end this video. So I hope that some stuff that I said was helpful. It's just me like just rambling and just talking about stuff off the top of my head. But take care, thank you, and goodbye.